Welcome to the Bob Sullivan Show presented by KB Building Services. Tonight's show will feature John Bishop of Unsportsmanlike Conduct on 1620 The Zone in Omaha. We enjoyed a nice meal at Goldbergs in Dundee. Goldbergs is known for their burgers. However, me and John enjoyed salads. Please enjoy. Welcome into a brand new Bob Sullivan Show presented by KB Building Services. Today I'm joined by the one, the only John Bishop from 1620 The Zone.
One of the only. Well, I mean, there's many John Bishops out there, including the comedian that I'm confused for sometimes on Twitter.
Do you get negative responses? Or
no, I got a response one time on Twitter. So there's a comedian in England named John Bishop. Apparently he's very popular there. I know, you've never heard of him. But there was one day where I was getting like a stream of tweets.
Yeah.
Because his handle is John Bishop 100. Mine is John Bishop 71. Yeah. I don't know how they got confused, but apparently there were people that were upset that they didn't get refunds for a concert that had been canceled and postponed. And so I ended up having to respond to a lot of angry British women who were like, I'm not that guy. So anyway.
Well, at least it wasn't a Me Too movement against John Bishop.
Thank God.
That could have been bad.
Thank God he's a non-controversial comedian, or in other words, I've had some issues.
Well, today we are here in Dundee, Goldbergs in Dundee. Burgers and drinks are great here. Me and John, I got a taco salad and
I got a strawberry salad. Strawberry chicken salad, apparently, yeah.
So we're going a little light today.
Yeah, why not?
But there's one thing that you were really good at on Creighton broadcasts, and that is getting really excited and yelling.
Yeah, I do.
What's your recovery for the next day? Is it tea, or are you good to go the next day? Are you that conditioned?
I usually am, and yeah, sometimes I do get a little excited. Mm-hmm. And I think part of it is my hearing is not as great as it used to be, and so especially if it's an intense game at home, you know, in my headset I can hear myself and the crowd, and sometimes I feel like the need to try to yell over the crowd when I don't. What I need is a good engineer just to sit there and run the controls for me. But yeah, it usually didn't take long to recover. I mean, talking is my life; it's my profession. Mm-hmm. So, knock on wood or whatever. Yeah. It hasn't happened where I've had a really bad voice problem unless I was like sick or something. Right. But yeah, the energy, I've always been a broadcaster to feed off the energy of the fans. So if it's a dead atmosphere, chances are it's going to be a dead broadcast. Right. Where if it's a lively atmosphere, it's going to be a more lively broadcast. And obviously how the Blue Jays are doing impacts, your level of excitement. I've always tried to work on pace and not get too excited too fast, because once you've kind of reached your peak, where do you go if something gets better? Yeah. And then pretty soon you're inaudibly shouting. So it's always something I'm working on.
There's always some entertaining attempts at player names. What is the one that you ask the player? Like I asked Luke War how to pronounce his name, and I still butchered it after right when I started the show. Has there been anybody where you asked the pronunciation and still butchered it on air?
Oh, I'm sure there has been. Probably the most famous, but my favorite story about name pronunciations. Mm-hmm. So before I started doing Creighton, I did PA work for the Nebraska women for, I think it was about 10 years while I was still working in Lincoln. Mm-hmm. And there was a foreign-born player for Oklahoma who had a very unique name, and I wish I knew. I wish I could remember exactly what the name was. Yeah. But either way, this poor girl had been mispronounced on the road at all the road games. When it's time for the starting lineups, here's the Oklahoma Sooners, and starting at forward, such and such. Mm-hmm. And she had never had her name pronounced correctly. Well, I've always tried to be responsible enough, whether I'm doing PA work or straight radio or television work, to double check on all the pronunciations. And so before every game, if I had any questions, I would just take the roster, go down to the bench, and talk to an assistant coach or a trainer or somebody, sports information, whoever it might be. Well, I'm particularly glad I did it on this day. So I'm doing the starting lineups, and here's the Oklahoma lineup. And I go through their lineup. Then we do the Nebraska lineup. And right before tip-off, Sherry Cole, the head coach of the Sooners, legendary coach at Oklahoma. If you've ever seen her, she's very aggressive. And I hear this clump, 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 clump. She always used to wear these, high-heeled shoes. And it's like I could hear her coming, and she walks in front of the scorer's table and says, "Who's the announcer?" And I'm about ready to lose it.
Pointing at the other guy.
I'm about ready to lose it because there's only two of us that have headsets on, me and the marketing person that sits next to me. And I'm like, oh God, what did I do here? Because I was always afraid I would announce the wrong lineup, like put the wrong player in the game. And so I thought, what did I do? And I kind of meekly raised my hand. And she got up next to me and said, "That's the first time all season that she's had her name said right." And she gave me a high five, and she walked back to the end of the bench. It was like the greatest moment of my PA life.
And you were expecting to get slapped in the face.
I was expecting, why did you say this? Or, why did you do this? And instead it was, hey, great job, thanks, And then she walked right on back down to the bench. So for the rest of the game, I could do no wrong. And I made sure every time she scored a basket, I kind of put a little extra emphasis on her name just to tell the world I know how to say her name.
What is the day in life of John Bishop?
I do a lot of work at the house. Get my youngest son off to school, all that stuff. Deal with what I have to do with the dogs. But usually I'm sitting in the kitchen and I'm doing a lot of studying, a lot of reading, listening to press conferences, culling up audio, things like that. And so I'll spend, 3-4 hours just doing that, and then get in the car, drive up here, and do the show, and then after the show, unwind a little bit. But I guess the nice thing about when you do talk radio, if you enjoy the subject matter that you're talking about, which is kind of important, you never kind of feel out of it. So whether it's watching a game or watching Sports Center or whatever you're involved in with sports, going to sporting events, you're always in show prep mode, right? You're always thinking about your experience that you had, the game that you witnessed, the strategy, all of that stuff kind of goes into what we do on a daily basis. But I think one of the things about this show and the history of this show, which started long before me, was it's not always just about sports. We have a drop, we have a stick to sports drop that we play every now and then, especially if we get into political discussion. But I think the beauty of what we do in talk radio is we don't always have to just be hardcore sports. We talk about our lives. We talk about, things we've observed outside of the world of sports. And so we try to bring that all together. Yes, the umbrella that we're under is a sports umbrella, but occasionally we'll reach our hand out underneath that umbrella and, we do a bit every week. We call it Taste Test Wednesday. We test drove the Popeyes chicken sandwich. Everyone was talking about it. And so we like to stick to sports, but we also like to branch outside, and because not all of our listeners are just wanting to hear about, Nebraska's left tackle situation 24/7, 365. It's about what they're experiencing and what they're doing.
All right. We got, you said strawberry chicken.
This is strawberry chicken, so we've got
It looks like some nice
spinach, and then there's some walnuts in there, some mandarin orange, some strawberries, and then there's like a strawberry vinaigrette, which of course I carelessly just dumped all over my salad, assuming I was going to like it. I'm a strawberry guy, so we had a strawberry patch in our backyard when I was growing up, and so I became a big fan of strawberries from a very early age. So a lot of people like, oh, fruit and salad and chicken. Oh, that's gross. I'll mix in fruit. I'll put pineapple on pizza. I'm not afraid.
Well, let's get our first bite here.
Yeah, let's give it a shot here.
Not really able to cheer sub, but cheers.
That's a good vinaigrette. And spinach is good for me. I'm also a mark for crunchy things like peanuts and pecans and walnuts.
You know, this chicken is amazing. Perfectly grilled, perfectly seasoned.
Listen, Goldbergs does it well, and of course we're lucky because we're right next door.
You're right.
So, yeah, usually anytime we need to have a meeting over lunch, let's just go to Goldbergs. You literally just walk in the back door, which is another neat thing about this neighborhood, you know? It's just one of those places, you know, if you're not familiar with this part of town, you don't realize that Goldbergs is here, but it's like a hidden treasure. It's right here on Dodge Street. You just assume all the traffic on Dodge Street is just like zoom, 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 zoom. You gotta give it a chance.
Look for the red cover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this, I gotta say, taco salad is, if you don't get the bowl, it instantly takes, makes it a healthier option. Or at least I want to believe
The
it.
scary thing is, I feel like it's missing something when it doesn't have the bowl.
It's
like
a little
I said,
naked.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm a mark for crunchy bits,
Mm-hmm.
To me, a good pie is defined by the crust as much as it is the stuff that's in it. With the taco salad, I feel like if I don't have my tortilla shell, whether it's a full shell or like crumbling up Doritos on top of it, which is why I'm in such great shape. I'm always always loading up with the crunchy carbs.
With the with the internet, I think I was starting something and then stopping when we got our food. But what is the thing that gets the most negative response on Twitter? Is it when you guys talk about politics, negatively about Nebraska, or negatively about Creighton, or something positive about something?
Yeah.
If you guys are overly positive after a loss for Nebraska.
It's usually when it's negative about the team.
Mm-hmm.
But as we found here in recent years, Nebraska fans have kind of turned into a different kind of animal. For the longest time it was Nebraska could do no wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If they lost a game, it was because a referee messed up a call or whatever the case may be. There was always an excuse. But because the fortunes of the program haven't been as good as they were back in the glory days, now you've seen this transformation into once something goes wrong, people are like, oh, here we go again. You know, we can never do it right. We're always screwing things up. So
they've turned into Cubs fans.
They have. I've used that example many times, where Cubs fans forever it wasn't glass half full, it wasn't glass half empty, it's when's the glass going to spill.
And break.
And shatter all over the place. And Husker fans, because of the lack of success, have turned into the same thing. Also, and it due in large part to ourselves, because many of us remember the glory days, and so anytime you get that one moment where it feels like, okay, everything's back to normal, we're good again, and then the rug gets pulled out from under you, people have now become like Charlie Brown, where it's like, there's the football, gonna kick it, Lucy pulls it away, and it's strange how that happened, but it takes a little time for that to develop. But here it's been, time flies. I mean, it's been 20 years since Nebraska won a conference championship.
Yeah,
that's the longest drought since the 50s and the 40s and the 50s, and it's dangerously close to being the longest of all time if it doesn't change here in the next I think it's 3 years. So yeah, fans have now been conditioned into thinking something bad's going to happen here pretty soon. And the only thing that fixes that is winning.
What? How much winning?
And isn't that the $1 million question?
Which I think it's pathetic for Cubs fans. No offense. But, I mean, I see you and Kugler complaining all the time about the Cubs. You guys went, I don't know how old you are, but you went 40-plus years of your life without a World Series. And
well, my grandparents were both born and passed away before seeing, and never saw the Cubs win a World Series.
I mean...
And my grandparents were born in the 1910s, so...
Same here, mine as well. Well, 2 are still hanging on, but it's just I get when you get the taste of success, you want more. But I don't even really follow baseball, but I'll see like you guys complain and be like, oh, this is the worst team in baseball. And they're like a game and a half out of the wild card, and it's like, man, this is a team that in a 1-game situation, I'd be.
All right, so here's another example of being conditioned.
Okay.
I became a Cubs fan in 1981 when we got cable TV, and so outside of 1984, 1989. What was the year they went to the wild card? 98.
That was great.
2003. I mean,
very good.
Very good. Thank you. But I got conditioned very early on that the Cubs were this woe-begone franchise that was going to find a way to not get it done.
Yeah.
And so, even though this is the best 5 years of success I've ever seen with this team, there's still an element of the old, when's the glass going to spill, when's the glass going to break,
right?
That is out there. And so I think it's a combination of, once you start to win, you want to win more, with the, we haven't forgotten who we really are, and here's who we really are. We're the team that's not going to get it done when it matters most.
Right.
So, yeah, Kevin, that's part of the reason why Kevin and I became friends in the first place, was because we both had the same attitudes about the Cubs. You know, he understood where I was coming from, and I understood where he was coming from, because we pretty much thought the same way. We were just waiting for the glass to spill.
Most exciting sporting event you've been to as a fan?
Well, wow.
Or are you allowed to be a fan anymore?
No, I am. Not as much at the mainstream events. I would probably say most exciting I've been to as a fan. It's a kind of, it's not really a toss-up, because technically the second one I was working. I was in college, but probably the 1992 Colorado game in the Halloween massacre.
Okay.
We sat in my parents' seats, which were way up at the top of the South Stadium, and it was just a perfect night. You know, it was gloomy, it was a little misty. Hadn't beaten Colorado in a couple of years. We hated them. We were sick and tired of them, calling us rivals, blah blah blah. And they just went out there and blew their doors off. That's probably the most fun I've had at a sporting event. I would have liked to have said Game 4 of the World Series, but that was the last one the Cubs lost.
Okay.
But, and appropriately enough, Kevin and I were both there, and they lost, and then they proceeded to win after we left.
I'm sure there was no complaining after that at all.
No, not at all. But yeah, that game stands out. That game definitely stands out. But you're right about it is different now, because I'm not the same Husker fan as I used to be.
Right.
Being in the media, having been close to it, it changes you, because you see how the sausage is made. I mean, you're still interested in it, you still watch it, but it's as much for the job as it is for the pleasure and enjoyment. And you kind of have I don't want to make it sound like it's an advanced view, because it's not. But you do get a more worldly view of the situation, because you are covering the team, but you're covering everyone else as well, and so you have to look at it a little bit more dispassionately, as you did when you were a teenager. That said, there are still elements of fandom that creep in there, which is part of the reason why the show succeeds, is because we are speaking to the fans. But, you know, I did the post-game call-in show for the Husker Network when it first started.
Oh, God.
And that experience helped.
How many years ago was that?
Well, we're talking late 90s, early 2000s. That experience really helped the metamorphosis of going from super fan to observer, because I found out I had to be more like the referee. Yes, I had my takes and there was my frustrations, but then the callers would call in, and it was the first real chance for people to react right after the game. And you really got a sense of, man, these people are really miserable. You know, they're really angry. And I had to kind of adjust a little bit, because I could feed into that, and occasionally I would, because myself, as my own observer, I was frustrated, I was upset, you know, whether it was a call that went the wrong way or a play that was called wrong, whatever the case may be. But I also found that I needed to dial it back a little bit, because at some point, someone has to be the calmer voice in the room.
Right.
And so
the adult among other adults.
Yeah. And so you let them do the venting. You let them, you know, say what it is they need to say, complain what they need to complain about, and then you move on. And so, yeah, that experience kind of helped, you know, the whole changeover from being just a fan to being a media person. And I would say this, I know there's a lot of people that, oh man, I'd love to have your job. I'd love to talk about sports and all that other stuff.
Right.
But just know this.
You have to fill 4 hours.
Well, it's not that. It's just that it will change you as a fan.
Oh, yeah.
If you're doing it just because, hey, I'm a fan of the Huskers or the Blue Jays, and I want to talk about them all the time, over time, the grind of talking to others like you,
right,
and also getting close to the team, getting close to the coaches and the athletes, it will change your outlook a little bit. So just be mindful of that, you know, being super fan now, you won't come out of broadcasting or media on the other side super fan, just because it doesn't allow you to.
I think the only person who hasn't been affected by that is JT the Brick.
That might be true.
That's why I sort of admire him. He's got his thing. He does his thing, and that's going to be it. I mean, we're going to have an argument over Yankees and Red Sox every night, or he's going to raise his voice, and it's going to be great. But yeah, I agree. That super fandom is tough, especially when, I mean, just talking to some of the fans, where it's like, man, I guess kind of my perspective when I watch you and Kugler complain about the Cubs, it's like, man, can't you guys just enjoy this?
No, we can't.
Exactly.
Short answer, no, we can't.
Well, with 2 more things. And I promise this time it will be only 2 more things. Did you ever work okay, it's going to be 3 since this might be a 2-sided question. Did you ever work the call-in show, the coach's call-in show with like Solich or Osborne after games?
Well, they would do call-in shows during the week.
Oh.
So like I think it was Thursday nights. Thursday nights was the coach's call-in show. And I worked those. I'm trying to remember. I may have. I did. I take that back. I did host. I hosted the first year Bill Callahan's call-in show.
Okay.
Which was interesting. Quick story. We were. It was during the state football finals at Memorial Stadium, and the studios that we had were in the stadium. It was on the 3rd floor, and if you're not familiar with the 3rd floor, that's the club level seating on the west side. Mm-hmm. Well, there were a lot of, you know, NSAA people and other fans who had tickets on the 3rd floor. Mm-hmm. The week after, and The state finals were the week after Nebraska lost to Oklahoma 30-3.
Okay.
The game that featured that was the next year.
Okay.
This was the game that featured, was it Darren DeLone, who ran into one of their cheerleaders, their roughnecks, and got into a physical altercation, and it led to Bill Callahan talking about they're shooting guns and throwing fruit at our players.
That was a good. Were you the Husker Bill?
No.
Okay.
Matt Schick. Matt Schick is Bill in Washington, or Bill in Lincoln, or wherever. That's Matt Schick. I just do a very poor imitation of Matt's imitation. So anyway, they lost 30-3. It was the game where Nebraska kicked a field goal on the last play of the game. They purposely called a timeout so they could avoid the shutout, and some people mocked that. So I'm waiting for Bill to come up. He gets off the elevator, and I'm sitting in the studio. The show's right about ready to go on the air. The door finally opens, and here comes this short guy with his hat pulled down like this, wearing very neutral clothes. There's no Husker clothes on. You know, you see coaches wearing team gear.
Right.
Just a very neutral outfit, hat pulled way down. He'd gotten off the elevator and realized, oh no, it's the state football finals and all these people are going to be up here. I don't want anyone talking to me.
Right.
So he was trying to be as anonymous as he could as he snuck in to do the call-in show. But yeah, I did get a chance to be around that.
That, you know, I don't even know if you would need the hat to not be recognized. I guess the question would be, did anybody want to talk to him? I guess you.
I had to. I had a show to do. And it was in his contract. He had to do it.
All right, last question. Game that you went to, or game that you covered that you wish you had been able to just go to as a fan?
First thing that comes to my mind is the first Big East game here in Omaha, New Year's 2013.
Is that against Marquette?
Against Marquette. When they had the quintuple header of Big East games, and we were the last game that tipped off at 8:30, 9 o'clock. Doug's senior year. That place was amazing. I mean, the crowd was absolutely insane. It wasn't the greatest game in the world. I mean, Creighton won, but it wasn't like, you know, Marquette was a very physical team at that time, and so it kind of was more of a grinder. But the atmosphere in that building, with it being New Year's Eve, first Big East game, history-making moment.
Thank you.
You know, Doug McDermott doing Doug McDermott things. That's probably one I wish I could have just sat back and enjoyed it, because that's one of the loudest atmospheres I've ever been in inside an arena.
Well, John, make sure we catch you 2 to 6 on Unsportsmanlike Conduct on 1620. That's Central Time for. And nobody outside of Omaha listens to this, so we don't have to worry about that. So, John, Bishop, appreciate it. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Bob.
Goldbergs, thank you for hosting.
Yes.